Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural session of the Sunfangs Warband. That's my warband for the Discord co-op campaign in the Land of Aurnis. This warband is adventuring in the Kingdom of Saur up in the top left of the map or northwest of the map, where there are many undead beings and happenings afoot that they're going to quell. However, this warband is actually from the Kingdom of Ozetin, and they were commissioned by the dwarf king of that kingdom himself. So we are going to be playing retroactively the starter scenario where this warband came together and was commissioned to then go on this grand adventure. So we're starting in the city of Ir, and this is our first tussle with the city guard. It's a practice-friendly little match so that we can learn how to work together as a team and also give the city guard some work as well. But little do they know, Ozetin is about to have some trouble as well. So this is the starter scenario found in the 5 Leagues from the Borderlands core book. I'll just run through it. Obviously, we're using city guards here instead of orcs, but the captain and Fargo both have armor, so they're more heavily armored foes. You've got Lila and Sam there, who are our archers, and then Ivor and Thom, who are our normal foot soldiers. The starter scenario usually calls for like a hill in the middle and then a bunch of scattered terrain. I have this map here by Snowy. Shout out to Snowy's maps. So we've got a little tavern in the middle, and then a hill up to the north, and some open area down to the south with some scattered terrain all about. Let's introduce our warband. So Seth down there in the bottom right corner is our leader, Seth the Sunfang. He is armed with some knuckles, which is just a standard weapon, and a sling. So he'll be able to run and shoot with a sling a little bit. He is a feral, so feral have a special ability where they can move up to their full movement and attack with a ranged weapon. So that's pretty cool. Right next to him is Lorien Thistlebright. That's our halfling mystic. He has a bunch of tricky spells, as you could imagine from a halfling. Um, about 60% of them were rolled, and then I got to pick a couple. So he's able to frighten folks. He illuminates the map. He has a spell called Mobility, which allows friends to ignore terrain. And he's got a good combo with Shriek, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I can make Shriek mobile, and then Shriek can just like not literally fly, but figuratively fly across the map. Um, Lorien has light armor, and Seth the Sunfang has partial armor. Next up is Vectra, there in that bush with the blue name. She is our archer. She has a crossbow as well as a short sword, which is just another standard weapon. She's also in light armor. Shriek right there has a name that is unpronounceable by human mouths, but people call him Shriek of the Forsaken Sky. And he is a preen. And preen in this game have an interesting racial ability called, I believe it's called Outburst. But when they, yeah, called Outburst. When they have magic cast on them, they go into a rage and they just like sprint their full speed towards the nearest foe. It also happens if an ally within 6 inches becomes a casualty due to enemy actions, so that they can fly into a rage. And one of the interesting things about their anger is that they move their full speed plus their dash, and usually you cannot enter into a melee attack when you dash, but this is an exception to that rule. So Shriek rolled a speed bonus when I generated him, so he already moves 5 inches normally, and then Preen naturally get +1 to their dash, so that's +4. So he can move 9 inches, which is the majority of this map once he gets angry. So we will probably see that if my spell goes off correctly with Lorien here in a little bit. And then in the middle there, you've got Garrick and Marin. They're both followers, so they both just have the standard stat profiles. Garrick's got like a pitchfork axe hybrid, and Marin has a staff. And she also has light armor because one of our followers is able to don light armor. So that is our warband. and we've also overviewed the enemies. So we'll go ahead and get started without further ado. I have played quite a bit of 5 parsecs, but I have not played much 5 leagues. So I'm sure there will be many rules flubs and issues throughout this video. Feel free to put them in the comments or hit me up on Discord, and in the future then I can rectify them. But lucky for all of us, this is the starter scenario. So it's largely to teach new players, such as myself, how to play the game. None of the injuries, there's no injuries afterwards or any permanent effects. That's why I'm playing this as a flashback for my group before they get to Saur and then begin their adventures up there. But you do get a story point. So story points let you reroll key things, which is pretty great, including injuries. So I do like having lots of story points. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. If you are not familiar with 5 Leagues from the Borderlands, congratulations on making it this far into the video and being like, what is this guy talking about? As I continue to play, I'll explain some of the rules, perhaps poorly, but hopefully effectively. So with that being said, the battle round is broken into 5 phases, and you'll see them throughout this video. First is the initiative roll, just like many other games and beloved TTRPGs. Then there is a quick actions phase. This is for the players. And so if your heroes roll an initiative that is under their agility score, then they are equal to or under their agility score. Then they're able to act in the quick actions phase, which basically means they're able to act before the enemies. Then the enemies act in the enemy actions phase, although they do often attack as well. And then after the enemy actions phase is the slow actions phase. So all of your heroes get to act. It's just a matter of do they act before the enemy or after the enemy. I really like that kind of nuance there. It keeps it simple, but at the same time, the stakes are high enough that you can, whether you go before or after the enemy. And then finally, there's the tracking phase. That's kind of like your upkeep phase in many other games. So you look at things like how the morale of the enemy is doing, any ongoing effects, or like rolling for reinforcements and such. The VTT I'm using for this campaign is Owlbear Rodeo. I found it to be perfect for what I'm looking to do. The tokens are by Silky Noir, so shout out to Silky. She has some awesome tokens here. And the map is by Snowy's Maps, as I mentioned a little while ago. So once again, shout out to Silky. She's got some great assets, and I like how the tokens and the map interact together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll up our dice here. Need 66. This one, what are you, my friend? Sure, we'll call it that. All right, so only one of my heroes will be able to go in the quick action phase then. Lorian has 2 agility, but everyone else has 1 agility, and all these other dice are much higher than that. So now we gotta figure out who we'll have go. I think I'll have Lorian go, but I need to look at the preen rules real quick because I believe it's as soon as they get the spell cast on. All right, preen rules looked up. So the preen become angry if they are triggered by being hit by a range attack or spell, targeted by a spell, or if an ally becomes a casualty due to enemy actions, but they don't do anything immediately about it. They're just angry. But then when they're selected to act, they must move their full speed plus dash bonus directly towards the nearest enemy and engage them in melee if they make contact. So I think we're going to go for it. We're going to select Lorian to act first, and then we're going to try and cast mobility. So we're doing all the things already at the very start of the game. We're going to cast some spells. We're going to try and get the preen to charge. So I'll look some of that stuff up. When casters are casting, when a mystic is casting, they roll 2d6, I believe it is, and then they have to roll meet or exceed the difficulty level of their spell. Let me just double check. Yes, and if your roll is a natural 2, you expend a strand, which is unfortunate. That's a snake eyes. If it's below the incantation or difficulty score for the spell, then it fails and no strands are expended. And if it's equal to or above, then the spell succeeds. 1 strand is expended unless the spell is listed as simple. All right, let's look at mobility. Are you simple mobility? Does not appear to be the case, so that's kind of unfortunate. Let's come back over here and let's measure. Shriek's distance to the nearest enemy. Is 12, and he can only move 9. Although the enemies will have moved before then, and they likely will have come closer, because everybody is melee except for the 2 archers they've got over there. So yeah, we'll go for it. We'll select Lorien as our character who's going to go. And then Lorien will get 2 of these fancy purple mystic dice to roll, and he needs to roll a 6 or higher, I believe it is. There we go, we get the 6. Let me confirm on the spell table. Are you a 6 or a 7? Mobility is actually a 7. Shoot. The nice thing though is he was targeted by a spell, Shriek was. So Shriek is still angry because Preen hate magic. So from a mechanical perspective, this is great. From an in-game RP perspective, Shriek would probably get real pissed at Lorien because Lorien's just going to keep casting spells at him to send him into battle. So I'll have to figure that out. If you have any ideas of how that could work, because this will happen every single encounter, then I'm open to them. You know, some sort of reason as to why Shriek accepts some magic, but then still gets angry about it every time, even though it's going to become a pattern, and he's going to understand that Lorien is casting on him on purpose. But that spell failed. Let's finish that. All right, and I forgot to move Lorien before I cast the spell. In this game, you cannot move after you've taken your action. So Lorien's just going to stay chilling over there by that little hill. So that is him. And now we will go to the enemies. And we will see. So now we'll go with the enemies, and we will see how they activate. So enemies will always act with ranged troops before melee troops. The ranged troops will try and stay in cover and get to a point where they can shoot at the enemy. So these are all kind of standard foes here. Lila actually can't see anybody. Well, she can't move into cover. Let's check the range of a self bow. It has an 18-inch range. All right, so let's measure again. 22 inches, a little too far. You do block your allies as well. So if I have Lila run up in front of Fargo, she'll actually block him and he'll have to run around, but he's hoping to get the jump around that corner. Yeah, I think she'll just have to go like into that bush, like peeking around the corner of that tavern, because otherwise she's out in the open and she would not want to do that. And the bush is actually gonna be difficult terrain, so she'll just have to block Fargo and he'll have to go through and he'll have to deal with it. She does get 7, so yeah, she actually can go into the bush a little bit, and that is her. She won't be able to attack even though she has a bow because she has moved more than half of her movement. Same thing with our main man, Sam, over here. We're going to have Sam climb. So we'll say this is 1 inch. Let's get the movement tracker going. So he gets an inch up there, so he spent 2 movement, and then he'll get an inch up here, so that's his 4 movement. And then he'll just dash into here, and we'll call that good. So he's kind of in a forested area on top of this hill that he's climbed up on. Now we'll proceed. Let's go with Fargo because he's top of mind. Poor Fargo getting blocked there by Lila. So this will cost him 3 inches of movement then because it's going to cost him 2 and then he'll be out of it. And then he's got 7 total. So going to 3, basically you get a +1 tax here, so that's his 4. Then his 3 would actually not even put him into cover. I don't think he's loving that. So here's what we're going to do. He's just going to come up here, and then he'll walk right to that corner and hope that we are foolish enough to approach them. Because then he's already paid the difficult terrain tax, and then he can walk out next turn. Yeah, that's what we'll do with him. And then poor Thom is just kind of over here. But if we angle him like this, then I think we can almost get him there. Yeah, right there. Call that good. Then let's look at the measurements. How far is he from someone who can shoot, like Vectra? He is kind of far, but it's going to clip that corner, I believe. And since it's a solo game, then what I say goes. If you're 50-50 on cover, the game tells you to give them cover. So this shot could definitely be taken, but it'd be in cover. Vectra has a crossbow, so she can't move either. So we will keep that as is. Fargo will stay there. Let's go up top. Captain Thalas will start his movement as well. He's also got 7. Hook him down here for 2. Then he'll go straight for 2. And then he'll move for 3. And he unfortunately can't get into true cover, but he's in this little alleyway, so he's pretty protected. And same thing with Ivor. Let's have Ivor follow his captain. 2, and then 5. So they're providing each other combat support. When you get into melee in this game, you have 3 rounds of exchanges. Whoever initiated the melee combat is the attacker in the first round. But then if you win, you both roll a d6 and then compare results. And whoever won after modifiers are added becomes the attacker for the next round and may deal damage depending on what they've decided to do. There's also like different stances that you can take, which we'll get into in a little bit, probably in the next round. But you can like fight defensively or evasively. So it adds quite a bit of nuance to the melee combat. If you're familiar with 5 parsecs is very much it's a very shooty game. There's lots of guns and you shoot each other a lot. I've heard it be described as like a miniatures game FPS. I don't know if that's like 100% accurate, but there is a lot of positioning and shooting. There is melee as well, but it's not the focus. Whereas the vibe that I get from 5 Leagues is definitely much, much more melee focused. In fact, in the rules, your enemies only have so many ranged models in the first place. And I like how they abstract away handling ammunition for ranged weapons. So if you ever roll a 1 on your ranged weapon, you're out of ammunition, and that you can't shoot it anymore, unless it was the first time you shot it. So if Vectra shoots and rolls a 1, it'll be fine because it's the first time that she shot her crossbow. But if the next time she does it, then she's out of luck. So that's kind of neat. All right, so now we're in the slow actions phase, and I think what we're gonna do is I do think we're gonna have Seth run out there. He's the Sunfang. He's fearless. He can move 7, and he can still. Okay, so he's not gonna go into the bush, but he's gonna go behind it so that he doesn't incur the difficult terrain penalty. And then he has a sling, which I believe has a range of 10. Indeed, it does. Slings are the only weapon that I'm aware of that do not run out of ammunition because you can just pick up rocks and throw them. All right, so let's have Seth throw a rock. Let's have Seth throw a rock at Fargo, I believe. We're gonna look up cover real quick. Yeah, so he is in cover because our line of sight crosses a terrain feature that's more than 1 inch from the shooter. And they're inside of that as well. So a bush is an area feature, like a bush or a forest or anything like that. It takes up an area. So he's definitely got cover. And what that means is I believe we're only hitting on a 6+. But There's nothing else that Seth could do right now anyways. Indeed, Seth has to hit on a 6 plus. So let's go, Seth. He's going to roll this. Come on, lucky 6. That is a 1. But he has a sling, so and it's also the first time he shot, so he's all good there. And that is Seth. Lorian has already acted, and I forgot to move him. Whoops. Let's go with Marin next. And she can move, I believe, 7, yes. If she dashes. So she can go here, there for 2, and 5 more puts her right wide open in the open. No, thank you. She'll go right over into these bushes because this will cost her 1 extra, so that's actually plus 4. So she'll go right in the bushes, enough to get cover, and then hopefully she can spring out and surprise them next turn. Next we'll go with Vectra, and Vectra will take that shot on Thom, who will have cover. Does she have any combat skill? She does. Great. So she's going to roll +1. She and Shriek are the only 2 of our characters who have a combat skill. But actually, I think I forgot one thing. Let's look at casting. If you add your casting skill to your roll, then that spell actually succeeded. Yeah. You roll 2d6 and you add the casting ability score of the Mystic. So let me rectify that. A little bit of a retcon here. So we roll a natural 6 and you add 1, and he has a casting, Lorian has a casting of 1, so it did hit the 7. Luckily, it hasn't had any impact on the game as of yet. But let me add this here, and then I'm going to make a quick little counter here for myself for strands. So he's down to 2 strands now. So we have sparklies from Lorian casting mobility on Shriek. So you can see the wonderful mobility that Shriek has by way of all the sparkles. So Shriek is now also angry, which I will note down, and Shriek will run. He will run so far away next turn when he has the ability to. Actually, when I activate him, he must do so. So I'll probably run Garrick up so that he has some combat support when he gets into that tussle with the captain. All right, all that being said, let's see, where were we? We moved Marin up. Vector shot and missed. Seth has moved up more. He's acted. All right, so yeah, that gives us just Garrick and Shriek. So let's go ahead with Garrick and start moving him up. He is 4-3 because he's a follower. So let's go ahead and move him up there for 2. And then over here for 2 more. And then he'll dash up right there. Because preferably we don't want him to get attacked by both because he is a follower. All right, so now Shriek will go. And Shriek is angry because he's had a spell cast on him. So that's 2, and then 3 is 5, and then he's going to dash his full speed, which is 4. There's like a little bush outcropping there, so I'll just move him here, just so we're on the up and up either way. Because if that was difficult terrain, then we're right on target. And now we got this nice little cluster there in the corner of everybody trying to fight each other. All right, so Shriek must enter into melee combat now because he's so angry. And Shriek does have a combat bonus, and he has a giant sword, so that's pretty good. He's also got a helmet and a shield, so he's definitely kitted out to go run into the middle of combat. All right, so melee combat initiates when your bases touch, definitely happening right here. And they each and melee combat is called an exchange. It takes place in a series of exchanges. There's 3 per melee combat by default. There are ways to get more. So Shriek will be the attacker, and each exchange has 5 steps. We'll do 3 of them. 3 exchanges. Each exchange has 5 steps. One is you select a weapon. He's only got 1 weapon, so it's going to be his bastard sword. And then you select a tactic, which is optional. By default, you just attack them and inflict hits. You resolve the exchange, which is roll your dice, and then there's a push. So whoever loses gets pushed back 1 inch. and then you have the next exchange after that. And I did not actually plan this when I was setting up the scenario, but if you push a defender into a wall, they become stunned. So this could potentially be very good for Shriek or very, very bad for Shriek, because if he loses, then he's going to be hit into the wall, which is not so great. And then you go to the next exchange. Whoever won gets to press the attack. Sometimes you can push your target out and choose not to pursue them if you wanted to, because maybe they're it's dangerous and you just got a lucky win or something. But I think we're gonna go ahead and just attack normally. So there's 3 tactics that you have. They're optional. You don't have to select one. So there's really 4 modes, because there's your base mode, which is just attack, and if you win, you inflict a hit. There's fight defensively, which means you roll twice and pick the better roll. But if you win, you don't inflict any hits. So this is just trying to be defensive and not do any damage and not die to the enemy. You also can't counterattack, which is a rule that allows you, obviously, as it sounds, to attack when you're defending. Fighting evasively, you roll normally, but if you win, you inflict no hits, but instead move 2 inches away, so it lets you flee, basically. Also, you can't counterattack when you're fighting evasively and trying to flee, which makes sense. Or you can fight furiously if you're the attacker, which means you get a +1 to basically dealing damage to them. It's called an overcome toughness or overcome armor roll. Um, I'll go into that in just a second. So, but if you fail, then you suffer a hit yourself. So it's like you're really going all out, almost like reckless attacking as a barbarian in D&D, where it's like they get advantage against you and you get advantage against them. It's kind of the same thing. You have to make the hit, otherwise you're going to get hit. When someone is hit, which we'll see very shortly, one way or another, there's a number of steps to resolve how much damage they've taken, if any. So the first one is called overcome toughness. So each character has a toughness stat. So then you have to roll again to see if you overcome the toughness stat, and if you don't, um, then the hit doesn't deal damage. And then there's one called overcome armor, which um, the captain here does have armor, as you can see from his token. And if that's not overcome, then also he doesn't get wounded. But if both of them are overcome, then the opponent becomes wounded. And I believe if they're wounded twice, they die. They're a casualty, something like that. All right, so let's keep on going. We're just going to roll. And if I remember correctly, I believe their captain, he does not have a combat skill bonus, lucky for us, but he does have a damage increase. We are both going to get a combat bonus, I believe, because we have an ally. Where are you? Combat bonus. Well, we are in a narrow corridor, or defending a doorway-ish. So I'm going to rule that neither party can get a combat bonus here, although that doesn't matter so much because we both would have had +1 anyways. So no combat bonuses, straight to the rolls. The red will be the captain, and the blue will be our hero, Shriek. All right, so Shriek wins even before his combat skill, so he gets a 6 to the captain's 3. So he does inflict a wound, inflict a hit on the captain. So let's read through resolving hits, yeah? Oh yeah, I should look up his sword, eh? What does his sword do? All right, it can be used single or double-handedly, and it gets a +1 for overcoming armor, which is great, because this guy, captain, that we're fighting happens to have armor. But first we need to overcome his toughness. So let's try and do that. His toughness is probably 3. Oh, it's a 4. That seems a little higher than I was expecting. Aren't all my guys tough 3? My goodness, how could they do this to us? Roll to overcome toughness. Do I add my combat skill to that? I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't. I use the weapon profile. And the sword actually is +0, +1. So that is quite fortunate. Oh, you roll overcome armor first. Haha, perfect. All right, so we did hit the 4. So our target becomes stunned, and the attack fails because it's equal to, and it's not lower than, so that's fine. And then when he's stunned, the enemy, we get a +1 combat bonus. That's an interesting rules question. I don't think we can get the combat bonus because we're in a tight corridor, so that's kind of unfortunate. So being stunned here just really doesn't help so much. And then the opponent recovers from the stun after the exchange is fought, unless they're stunned again. And then they always become unstunned. They recover from stun at the end of the phase. So stunned is functionally doing nothing for me right now because we can't get combat bonuses in this tight quarter. However, remember earlier how I said there's ways to get more exchanges? This is one of them. If the defender would become stunned, then the attacker can keep attacking. So basically, as long as Shriek wins, then he can keep attacking. Um, it also means mechanically we've got something interesting going on here. Um, we're in such tight quarters and there's walls between both of us that I think this combat may go on indefinitely as long as one side chooses to pursue the other, because whoever loses is going to be pushed into a wall and stunned. It's going to go back and forth and back and forth. So it seems I've created a rules quandary in the intro unwittingly. Um, yes, so they must retreat 1 inch backwards if possible, and then the attacker can remain in place, or they can choose to step up to remain in melee. But if the defender is unable to retreat, they remain in place, become stunned, and another exchange is fought, even if it extends the number of exchanges this in this melee round beyond 3. So that's really interesting. I think for the sake of like, it doesn't have to be in a straight line. It says, so I'm going to say this guy does have the ability to move backwards for a little bit, at least one, and then his back is probably going to be to the wall. Yeah, it does say backwards. Sorry, I can't read. So since he must go backwards, he becomes stunned. We fight again. So let's go once more. Come on, Shriek. Shriek wins again. All right, so now Shriek's going to try and overcome his armor. He gets +1 to this roll. He does overcome the armor this time. Hooray. And then we're going to try and overcome the toughness, which gives us +0, I think. I actually think I'm reading the profile of the weapons wrong. My bad. Since you go for the armor first, yeah, I did. I was right. So I was wrong, but now I'm right. It's overcome armor / overcome toughness. I read them backwards. So he actually wouldn't have added +1 to that, but he rolled a 5 naturally, which is greater than the armor value of our opponent, which actually means that last time he would have succeeded as well, because I did it backwards. I did toughness and then armor, but that's okay. So now we're going to roll to overcome for toughness. If the roll is a natural 1, the target's stunned. If it's a 2 through 6, then we add any overcome toughness bonuses that our weapon has, so it'd be +1. And if it's higher, they become a casualty and are removed from battle. If it's equal to or below their toughness, they're wounded and stunned. And then if they're wounded a second time, they are removed from play. So we're going to get something good no matter what here. Hopefully, hopefully it's a wound at least, if not more. All right, so we get a 6. I believe that we are now removing the captain from combat. Yeah, so it's going to be a 7 total, and his toughness is 4. So goodbye, captain. The angry preen goes on a rampage and knocks out the captain. But lucky for the captain, this is only a practice round, so he'll live to fight another day. All right, and that is that. So now we need to go to the end phase, and we have to roll for a morale check because somebody ran away, but it's not a 1 or a 2, so we play on. So now we're gonna go 2, 4, 5, 6 dice, roll again. We got 2 2s, but only one person can utilize 2s, and that is Lorien. So Lorien is gonna go ahead and take one of those 2s though. And let's see what other shenanigans and spells that he can cast for us. So Lorian's already got mobility up. There is no like concentration or anything like that, so he could cast mobility on someone else if he wanted to. He's got a spell called Steel Break, which is kind of nice, so he can set someone's armor to 0. I think I'm going to do those. I think I'm going to have him try and cast Frighten. So what that does is we just rolled morale, right? You add +1 to the number of dice they roll for morale. One thing that I'm not sure with fighting though is is it just +1 or does someone have to have been defeated? Yeah, if the enemy took any casualties, they must roll 1 additional morale die. So we need a 7+ on this one as well. Let's go ahead and try it with our fancy mystical dice. He gets +1 to this roll. Whoops, that is not what's supposed to happen. So let's just, sure. All right, he fails. So that is that. And I forgot to move him once again. But you know what? He's okay right there. So let's keep on going. The ranged characters will act first. So Sam is going to shoot down at Shriek. And unfortunately for Shriek, he is not in cover, and he is very close to Sam, which means I think Sam's going to hit him on like a 3+ or something. What I need to do, I'm finding for future episodes, is I need to print off um, the range table, or just keep it handy. Because now I'm having to dig all about to try and find it. Within 6 inches and in the open, 3+. All right, buckle up, Shriek. Here comes the pain. Let's roll that red die, 3+. Oh my goodness, we're so lucky. Roll the 2. So this archer right here, let me select him, goes to attack Shriek and just fails miserably. Thank you very much, sir. Next, we'll go to Lila. Lila has a shot at Seth and does have some cover. So we're just going to go ahead and have her take that shot as well. Let's roll the dice. All right, he is behind cover, so that is going to be another miss. Okay, now let's have Fargo move up. Fargo, how far are you from Seth? 9, not going to cut it. But he can get closer, so that is what he's going to do, because he very much wants to be mixing it up and not just standing here. So with his run and dash is 7. He can't get into the brush, but he can get right up to the brush and be covered from Vectra. So that's what he'll do. And then similarly, Thom over here is going to go 4, and then he's got 3 more. So they're hoping that Seth will come in and try to attack them directly. Sam missed, and Ivor is now 2 versus 1. I think Ivor might make a tactical retreat here and try and just hold. If he does that, though, he's just leaving Sam on an island, I guess, because both Shriek and Garrett can get up to Sam with their climb speeds. You can body block in this game, so that's what Ivor is going to try and do. There are no like attacks of opportunity or anything. You know what? Nah, he'll just use the initiative, and he'll try and attack Shriek, and hopefully drive Shriek back a little bit. It's a tie, but unfortunately for Ivor, Shriek has a +1 bonus because of his combat skill. So Ivor's going to lose here. And let's go ahead and resolve the hits. Shriek was fighting normally. He does overcome Ivor's armor, which I guess I technically didn't have to roll that because Ivor has no armor. And then he does overcome Ivor's toughness as well. So Ivor comes in, he's like, I've got you, Sam, I'm gonna help out. He goes to attack Shriek, and then he gets rended. That is that. Anyone else left to go? No. So unfortunately, Lorian's spell failed, but if it had succeeded, since Shriek just took out Ivor, then they would have rolled 2 morale checks instead of 1. All right, now we're into our own phase. How far away is Marin from them? Probably like 8. Whoops. Yeah, like 8, 9, 10. So she's not going to be able to get in there this round, but Seth can get in there and mix it up. Um, if Seth goes after either of them, they will get a combat bonus, unfortunately. So I think Seth is actually going to try and flank them and hit him with the sling. So what we're going to do with Seth is we're going to measure. Oops, he can only move 4. Is that right? Oh, he can move 5 actually. Yeah, so he is going to go out in the open here, which is not the wisest move that I've ever had. But Lila has to turn that corner, or else she can't get a clear shot off on him. And he doesn't mind that because that means that she's out in the open. Let's just make sure that's correct. Yeah, if you go center to center, it's going to clip that building. Yeah, and it's more than 1 away from her. So that's what he'll do, and then he's going to shoot at, it has to be Fargo from this angle because the allies do body block and block line of sight, so he can't even target Thom, which is who he was hoping to hit. So we're within 6. Oh yeah, okay. So looked some things up, and this reinforces my thinking that this is such a melee-focused game. So the 2-hit table is actually different than the 5 parsecs 2-hit table. Um, Basically, it's only if they're within 6 inches and within the open that you're hitting on a 3 plus. Otherwise, you're hitting on 6s. So I guess there is a 5, which is if you're within range, within weapon range and in the open. Um, so for long range weapons like a crossbow or something like that, it matters. But for most other weapons, like a sling has a 10-inch range, so there's a very narrow band of where you'd get one bonus versus the other. I think we're just gonna have Seth charging at them. That might not be the smartest thing though. Here's what we'll do. We're gonna resolve Seth after. We'll just keep him where he was. And then we'll have Vectra shoot at Fargo. So let's roll. Oh, she ran out of ammo. How sad. Alright, well, Vectra is going to be using that short sword of hers now. So sad. Literally the second attack, which is when she could run out of ammo, she's like, I'm going to run out of ammo. So let's go over here, click on Vectra, Fargo. What I need is an epic fail ranged attack animation. There we go. Alright, well, that's what it would have looked like if she actually hit him, but she didn't. So instead, where's the animation for dropping all of your bolts on the floor and ruining them? We'll go with Marin next, and Marin will just simply move up. She gets to move 7. Ah, so she can get up and provide a bonus to Seth at least. So that's what she'll do. And then Seth can come up and go and attack Fargo. So now Seth and Fargo are in battle. They both have combat bonuses, so they're both going to get a +1. So it's just a straight roll, basically. And we win it. Awesome. Oh wait, no, we're not. We're not the red. We lose it, which is not awesome. Let's roll against the armor. Seth has partial armor, but it's not going to be a 4 for sure. And you know what? This is good to note. Seth actually gets a -1 to his dash speed because of his partial armor. I believe it would have been immaterial because he didn't need to dash here. Maybe he would have been an inch out somewhere. But anyway, his armor gets overcome, and then let's roll again and see if his toughness gets overcome. It does not. And they actually rolled a 1, so I believe that means he gets stunned. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I'm noticing coming from 5 parsecs is just the tables and the other things are different. So I'm having to look stuff up a lot more. All right, natural 1, yes, he becomes stunned, and then he also becomes pushed back an inch, if possible, which is possible here because we're not against a wall or anything. So go back 1 inch. And then Fargo becomes the attacker now, and he may choose to press the advantage, which he will because Seth is stunned. And this time Seth wins. But you know what? I think I did that wrong because Seth was the attacker, so I think he just simply loses the initiative. Yeah, exactly. If the defender has the higher score, they avoid harm and become the attacker in the following exchange, unless they have counterattack. But I do not believe, yeah, they do not have a weapon that gains counterattack. So he became the attacker. Now Seth becomes the attacker. So Seth is not stunned. Seth becomes the attacker. He also does not have um, anything that would give him counterattack. So we go for it again. And this time Fargo wins. And so we basically just, it's a push at this point, um, because we just swapped who was the attacker back and forth. So that it could have gone worse, but it definitely could have gone better. Now, one of the things I need to look up though is what happens. I think we just push 1 inch backwards now at the end because you never in combat in base-to-base contact. Yeah, if this was the third exchange in a row, the melee ends, and each combatant moves 1 inch backwards to separate. So we're both going to move back an inch. All right, so that's Seth, that's Marin. Lauren already went. Vectra took her shot and missed. Shriek and Garrick actually have not gone, so they can go take on Sam over there. This is a height of 2, so the way that climbing works is you just pay a tax. You just pay the vertical tax. So it's going to cost Garrick 3 inches to go 1 inch here. Whoops. Let me turn on measurements so we can see. So he's moved 1 inch there, so that's 4. That's his full attack. That's his full range. And then if I go to the measure tool, I believe, you know what, he's going to be just short because their bases have to be touching, and that's definitely not bases touching right there. Um, so we'll have Shriek go. Shriek has mobility. Interesting about mobility, I think it's only for difficult terrain. I don't think it gives me the ability to like super scale walls, which would be kind of cool. I don't think that's what it does. Yeah, just ignores difficult terrain movement reductions. So he's going to go 5. Gotta turn that measurement on again. I go 1, and then that's up 2. So 2, 3, sorry, 1, 2, plus 2 is 4, and then you can move over 1. So that's his 5. And then he's going to initiate some melee combat. He's got an ally within 1 inch, I believe. I believed wrong. All right, so he does not have an ally, but that's okay. He's got a combat bonus, which is great because he would have tied otherwise. So he ends up winning, and then he will roll to overcome armor. I don't think we need that roll actually because I don't think she has armor. Let's just double check. Do you have armor? No, you do not. All right, so we overcame the armor. Hooray. Then we attack, and wow, Shriek is just a monster. That's great. Boom. Take that. All right, so that is the round for us, and we eliminated 2 more foes, so they have to make 2 more morale checks. And they have 2 failures. Which, yeah, it's going to be Fargo and Lila, actually, which is sad because Fargo is like the vice captain. But his captain's gone. He hears battle. He's scared. So they both flee, leaving poor Thom all on his lonesome against a bunch of us. So let's roll 2, 4, 5, 6. We do get 2 1s in there. So we'll have Seth with Miriam, I think. Marin, excuse me. And then maybe we can push Thom out of these bushes. We'll have Seth go up first and we'll just roll the attack, which he wins. And then Thom doesn't have any armor, so we get to skip that. We'll just roll to overcome toughness, which is equal to toughness, which I believe is a wound, if I'm remembering right. If it's equal or below, they are wounded and stunned. Yeah. So Thom becomes wounded and stunned. And then let's go ahead and make another attack against him. We succeed again. He has no armor, and then he gets destroyed. So that is that. That actually went really well. I think some of the rolls went in our favor. We easily could, like up top, when Shriek and Garrick were fighting against the captain and Ivor. I think we easily could have had some problems there. Oh, and I realized that half of this battle has been off them. It's great. Oh no. Well, here's what you could have and should have seen. Um, you saw the rolls, you just didn't see the people. So that's cool. That's great. I will make sure to pay more attention to that next time. But yeah, so Seth comes down here and attacks Thom with a Savage Claw and sends our homeboy packing. So this has been the recap of the Sunfangs inaugural training with Captain Thos. Yeah, with Captain Thos and the city guard of the Keep of Air, which we had in the middle of the town of the suburbs of the town. This is outside of the keep. No buildings or civilians were harmed in the filming of this flashback. Vectra lost all of her bolts. So that was great. Lorien did get a spell off on Shriek, but also failed his other spells. Let's see, what would he have gotten this time if I was gonna do Frighten? I think he would have passed barely. Cool. All right, so that is our first session. We'll get that extra story points, and I'm starting to understand how the system works quite a bit more. I've done the same battle before, but it was a few weeks ago, and I have never like gotten very deep into a campaign of 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. But thanks to Georgie for setting up the co-op campaign on the Discord server. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll have about one or two of these per month. We'll see in that shared campaign as we try and eradicate the undead threat from the Isle of Saur. I'm Rega, and this has been the Sunfangs. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll come and watch some more. Goodbye.